Hi everyone, it's Jean and Carl. And if you're watching this video, you're probably a data professional, like a data analyst, a data scientist, a data engineer, or you're in data governance. And you've had some success in your career. Perhaps you're already managing a team, or you might even carry the title of head of data or chief data analytics officer or something like that. But as both Jean and I have experienced in similar roles we've had, you might feel that in your job, you're in a constant battle in your company to get funding for the projects that you know are going to do great things, and also to prove the value of what you're doing. It might feel like you're having to run through brick walls to make any progress, not only in your job, but also in your career. So John and I have both been where you are. And I remember what a battle it was to get any project over the line, fighting massive adoption issues and change management issues and things like that. It honestly felt like I was working in a company with other people, but my colleagues, especially in the finance team, were my enemies. I felt like I had to go to meetings with a helmet on, in order to avoid getting flattened. John, what was it like for you?
Yeah, God, I don't know. Even if a helmet would have worked in the scenarios that I like often found myself in. I mean, it's very demotivating, right? So I think, for most people that like data and that's passionate about data, you just want to get stuff done. You want to deliver the insights. You want to bring something to business that adds value. But the problem is you consistently being bombarded with the questions and why are we spending this money and why are we expanding the team and why do you need this role and why do you need to go on this training and why do you need to attend this conference? And you find yourself just consistently having to justify your existence, and it becomes draining. Like it's really problematic. And for me personally, I think at least for the first 8 years of my career, there was not a lot motivating you to get up in the morning because you
Mm,
can sort of play out the conversations in your head already around the fights that you'll be having with the CFO, and the
mm,
finance teams around the things that you need to do. The one
mm,
end, you're getting pressure from business, we need to do this stuff. On the
mm.
other end, finance is saying, but why spend the money?
Mm,
We've got other things that we need to focus on.
yeah. So we want to have this conversation with you all today to explain how we got through this in our careers, and to give you some tips and some input into how you can do the same. So this is all about helping you to grow your influence and your impact, which will have the effect of also growing your income. So, John, I want to hand over to you and can you explain to us how it felt, in a specific example where you were always in the battle to get budget commitment,
Mm,
and how this made you feel isolated and often in opposition to the objectives of the company?
yeah, yeah, no, Kai, I think the biggest battle scar I still carry till today comes from 2016. I was sort of on my way out of the company at that stage, and then things changed significantly. I overnight had to take the role of my boss's boss. She left, had to step into the role of sort of senior lead for the team. And I think the things that they've protected us against, like having to go and justify budgets and having to fight those things, all of a sudden became my headache. And yeah, I mean, it was just bad. I think at that point in time, the big focus was we knew that we had to reinvest in data platforms. We had to do things differently, had to pivot what we're doing as a team because we're not keeping up with the demand from business. And I mean, we spent a significant amount of time on formulating a data strategy, which is an interesting story for another day. But long story short is we at some point even got like graphic designers in to build out this very nice picture of just what it is that we want to do, almost showing like, this old clunky cars that we have. And over time, we're replacing the road with new data platforms and changing the fuel that we're putting into our our vehicles around increasing variety, velocity, and veracity. And, like really intuitive stuff, because the question that we kept getting back to was, tell us the story on a page. Tell us why we need to make this investment. And in my mind, the thing was technically, I need to show them what it is about. The
Mm,
question was more around what's the value that we're adding to the business.
Mm,
So we spent about 6 months with this back and forth trying to get this picture, and eventually it just ended up in an Excel sheet. But I think at the end of the day, the big thing was, we had to put a business case together for this thing, and it was massive. I mean, as we're talking hundreds of millions of rands investment that had to go into this business case. And obviously, some people were in support, and some people were driving it, and some of the exco members saw, let's call it, the benefit of it. And then, on the other side, there was a lot of people questioning it, specifically like the procurement,
mm,
the finance, and the other teams, the number guys, where for them it didn't make any sense, right? We used words like, we're going to do this for enablement. I
mm,
remember that entire section around ROI was, we didn't know why we really spending the money. We just knew that we had to get this platform, so we
mm,
can do stuff because business
mm,
wants it. And we couldn't clearly articulate what those points for value was, right? So
mm,
as a young data professional back then, it was overwhelming. I mean, I was just trying to keep up with the technology, trying to sort of steer the ship, manage the team,
mm,
um, get some direction going. And now I knew technically what I had to do, and now trying to get buy-in and support from your higher ups and your management became like this consistent fight. This is like a
mm,
brutal battle, and every single, like, I remember, like, if I walk in the morning and I'll get a call from the CIO's PA, so like, he wants to see you now.
mm,
I thought I'm getting fired like every single day. And then, it's not like, we're going this direction, we need to do this, focus on this. So it was really horrible. It was, a time in my life that I'm very thankful for. I think I've learned a lot from it, but I've learned so much in terms of how we get things wrong as data people, because we focus on the capabilities and the
mm,
technology and the stuff that goes around that, and don't really think about the impact on the organization, or why are we doing things. It's
mm,
You easily get so sucked up in what technology is doing and what the capabilities are. I mean, at
mm,
that stage for us, it was a fundamental shift. We just invested quite heavily into big data analytics.
mm,
And I mean, and that, what I couldn't understand was, when the hype sort of drive came through, everybody just signed it, right? Big data,
mm,
that's cool. Get the money, get it done. But the foundational things that we had to do, we couldn't get approvals for.
mm,
It was back and forth, having to have like 2 hour, 3 hour sessions with each one of the individual stakeholders. We had like 21 people that had to sign off on the business case because of the sheer volume of it. You had to go to repetitive councils. I remember, I think probably the worst moment for me that I can remember we had this executive approval council that was on the Exco wing, and I was sitting outside, and one of the business unit CFOs came out, and his business case was just turned down for like 4 million rand. And I'm coming in and I'm asking for significantly more. And I mean, listen, he looks defeated, and he's like, and instantly, like, I'm not even a CFO. I'm not, like, I'm small fry in the big pond. And I started to like go into a flat panic. And as I walked into the room, luckily this was now one of the hyper buys. They just said, well, we don't agree with the value measures, and we don't think, the numbers that you put down makes any sense, but it's fine.
mm,
Strategically, as a business, we're going to invest in it.
mm,
And I mean, it's sort of these uncertain things, and companies invest in it, and then there's the things that we know that we need to do, but we're just struggling to find that investment. So
mm.
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
2016 will probably remain my main story for many years to come, as
Mm,
probably one
mm.
of the biggest battles and biggest frustrations of my career to date.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sort of uh, what is it? It's the conundrum of a CFO that has to sit with this. We know we need to move forward with this, but we're uncertain about what
Mm,
value it's going to create. That you know puts this real challenging situation in place for them where they don't really know, and
yeah.
that's where the real battle comes from, because you become a cost, and I don't know what value you're going to add. We see it all the time with CFOs we have discussions with. Um, I have a similar story on from my experience. It was probably around the same time as that, actually, where I was doing some, or leading a team around some important, probably the top five most important projects in that organization,
Mhm.
in order to essentially rescue them from some massive financial decline. And they were very aware that data insights would play an extremely important role there. But it just felt like we were never able to get on the same page, myself and the CFO, around the investments that we needed to make and the things that that had to happen. And it just felt like I was always in opposition, like
Yeah.
pitching up at a meeting where you feel you have to take a gun to the meeting, right, to get people to agree with you to with something that you know is important for the organization. And but putting on my CFO hat and seeing it from their point of view, I now get it, and we'll get into the quandary that it creates for the CFO in a little bit, and how we as data people can solve that. But I think therein lay the frustration for me, was the importance of what I knew I was doing, or how important I felt in what I was doing, which I think a lot of data professionals share, that sort of feeling. And we're told that this is super important for the business to move forward, and these insights are game changing for us, and we have to get this right. But then as soon as we need something foundational, or some sort of commitment on investment or some training, then we're asked, why do you need this? And it really comes from that cost-based mindset that CFOs live with. So let's get into some of the, how do we solve this? How do we fix this battle royale that goes on between the data people, the data professionals, and the finance people and the CFOs? Because we've been able to fix it. I mean, Jean, we're having great success at the moment in the things that you and the Nexus Data team are driving in the business. Some great success in our customers being confident to invest. Very broad strokes, large scale investments, some of the biggest investments they've ever made, because we've changed the way that we talk about these things. So why don't you kick us off, Jean? What is the first thing that you'd say that we changed in order to get things moving forward better?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most important one is just around how did we sort of get into conversations, and how do we speak about stuff? We need to be very conscientious around the words that we use. The data stuff around enablement, and we need to do this because other people are doing it, and those type of things, unfortunately, doesn't fly. But just changing that direction around being able to articulate the value of what we need to do, being able to articulate, I'm doing this because the business needs this, and this is how it ties back to that business strategic objectives, I think has really given us sort of the foundation to position things a whole lot better with even ourselves, within our customers as well.
Yes,
And
yes.
we sometimes, when we come and we realize this is sort of the main problem, the thing was just not positioned well. It's the right idea, it's the right business case, but because value wasn't taken into consideration like it was supposed to, it just
That's it.
doesn't land well,
But I mean,
with the CFOs.
if I just think about how
Mm,
an executive would feel, how I feel in my position as an executive, as a founder and a CEO, how I feel when people come to me with proposals where I don't understand what they mean, and
mm,
where they're throwing all these big words and names and strategies and methodologies around, and they're really making me feel
mm,
stupid, right?
yeah,
But at the end of the day, it's all noise,
yeah,
right? It
yeah,
literally feels like noise. And so as a CFO, of course I'm going to turn you down. Of course I'm going to push you away,
mm,
because you're not talking to me about the most important thing that I'm focused on,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
so, I mean, as a starting point, like you say, just to get the ear of the executive, you have to change the way you speak to the language that they're looking for,
mm,
right? And understanding how to have those boardroom level discussions. Shift yourself out of your own bubble and your world where you're an expert and you feel comfortable, and
mm,
start shifting yourself into the world of business, the world of
yeah,
value, right?
yeah,
And the impact that we saw for ourselves is that we got more influence right in the start of the conversations. The tone of our discussion, the tone of how we spoke, gave us more influence in the discussion,
mm,
and we would turn to for solutions, for input, because we weren't trying to push our expertise onto the executives anymore. We were trying to, or we were now playing a value partner role to them, right? Instead of just being an insights producer,
mm,
because we were focused much more on the value that we could produce for them and with them, right? Rather than the capabilities that we needed, or the latest technologies that we needed, or
Mm.
because they don't really care about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which technologies we use, which people we need. I mean, that's your problem to solve, right? As a data professional, what they're really interested in is how does this translate to value. But John, I want to ask you an important question here. It's difficult often to take
Mm.
this ream of initiatives that you might be sitting with that you need to execute, right? And these foundational things that you need to do in order to make those things happen. It's hard to often explain the value of some of the things that you're doing, especially if you're a data governance professional
Yeah.
and you're sitting with what is essentially just plumbing, right? Putting in Informatica solutions and having to define business glossaries and define terminology. And I mean, these are really, if you're a data steward, like you heading up a data team of data stewards, it's really hard to translate that into actual value that will get the CFO excited, right?
Yeah.
So how on earth do people do that? How have we done that in
Yeah.
order to get the buy-in?
Yeah, I mean that's such a good example, Carl, of I mean it's I remember, just sort of tapping back on my previous experience as well, where we were constantly reminded everybody that's doing something in the company is doing it for the end customer now, but now you're a data steward or a data engineer sitting somewhere in a warehouse or a data management team. Conceptually in your mind, there's no way that you can link what you do actually back to what the end customer is experiencing, either in a call center or a brick and mortar store, even on online channels. But I mean, we've changed this by the approach in terms of what we focus on, right? So if we almost take it back, right? So everybody's doing some data stuff somewhere in the organization. If we almost need to realign that, the main focus is what's keeping your CEO awake at night? What sort of those top five things that really bugs him, in terms of, the business sustainability, the revenue growth,
Yeah,
where can we reduce
those aren't data
costs?
capability things
Not
that
data
they need, right? They
capabilities
never
at
That's never
all.
bugging them,
It,
right?
yeah, I mean, if they're not interested if you're implementing data mesh or data fabric, or if you're going with, what do they call it? Like these days, it's the stream houses, which is now the new
Oh
flavor of
my
the
God.
month.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
Please don't ever go and write a business case and try and convey this message to the C-suite around the stream house. It's just not going to end well for you.
Yeah. The
Um,
stream
but
what?
but so really focusing on what's important for the business, and then looking what's the building blocks that you need to make this happen. Now, if you're a data steward that's focusing, as an example, on customer data, and you can relate it back to say, but these are the analytics, the insights, the capabilities we need in the organization to treat customer better so we can increase revenue, you're able to better understand your function and the impact that you have downstream to actually add value to your organization, right? So even if you're at the lowest level within data functions, there's a way for you to track this back. So often we wait for our leads to tell us, or our executives to tell us, or whatever it might be. But wherever you are able to actually map yourself back. I mean, it's your company probably has integrated reports. There's
Mm,
probably some stuff that's shared with you around what the priorities are. And if
mm,
you're in a company where communication and transparency is good, you probably know of what the pain points are, and
mm,
you can easily tie back what you do. And I mean, this is also where innovation can happen, where you can start talking about value as
mm,
a data steward within a company that relates back to what the company priorities are. And sort of this is how we've shifted the approach, and how we've seen a lot of success in our own careers as well as the customers that we're helping,
yes.
is focus with the value component in mind, and then try and readjust it to where you are today, and how do you impact the company's success downstream. Because if you can't do that, now the
Yeah.
question is, like, why do we pitch up for work in the morning? If we if we
Mm.
just a big drop in a small, or like a big drop
That's
in
right.
the ocean or something.
Isn't it such a powerful filter as well, Jean,
Yeah.
when what we're doing is so far removed from value, we can't even see it, right? How
Mm,
on earth are the non-experts
yeah.
C-suite that we have to answer to and that we have to drive value for, how are they going to see it, right?
Mm,
So it's a good qualifier to say, if I can't trace the dots or the line from what I'm doing in the plumbing that I'm working on, to driving some value directly on the
mm,
income statement of the organization, right? Then it's a good question to ask as a data professional: is what I'm
mm,
doing even relevant, even necessary?
yeah.
Right? Because often we're
Yeah.
just given things to do for the sake of it, right? Well, like I've seen so many organizations. I heard of one that started a business glossary implementation, and then their target is like they want to define 10,000 terms in the organization. And well, that's great and all power to
Yeah.
you, but how are you going to use that to create value? right?
Mm.
How about focusing on the 50 top terms that most directly impact your ability to do business, to grow your margins and to grow your footprint in the market, and just focus on those and how they
Mm.
relate to the challenges that you have in doing that, right? That sort of conversation immediately dissolves the battle with the CFO, because the CFO is fighting your desire and your mandate to spend money on things that he or she does not understand,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And every time you walk into that room and you're talking about something they don't understand, and they're looking at a list of foundational initiatives that they've got to invest in now, systems that they've got to put in place, training that has to get done, resources that are required, all that. They want to lose their minds because they
Mm.
cannot create that tie back to where this is actually going to land in terms of value. And
Yeah.
it feels disempowering for them. And so they're naturally going to fight you,
Yeah.
right?
No.
And you can dissolve that argument just by changing the conversation,
Yeah.
right? Just by drawing the line between what you're doing. And like you said, John, the top 5 things that
Mm.
are keeping the CEO awake at night. And that's really powerful. What about mandate, right? What about, we often sitting in the data function without a strong enough mandate to make things happen, right?
Mm.
Especially when it comes to the complexities of what it takes to actually create value when we're the ones sitting with some insights or something, because we need support from the CIO and the IT
Yeah.
function. We need support from the business, typically an operations team or something like that, because the insights are only really valuable when we can actually embed them. And often if the CFO will be sitting there, you're asking for money for something, and the CFO knows that you're not going to be able to do this
Mm.
because they themselves know how complex their organization is. And you talking
Yep.
about, no, no, we'll be able to get the business to adopt what we're doing. And the CFO is going, no, you won't, because this is a
Yeah.
highly political, highly strained environment where you can't get anything done, right? And now you coming in here with your big shoes and your big head, and you saying you're gonna get this done. How can we prepare for that complexity in order to firstly address it initially and get the
Mm.
confidence of the CFO, but then also make sure that we have the right mandate in order to have the authority to make things happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's just maybe to highlight the mandate problem and how it's sort of currently persisting, from what we've seen, is that a lot of data leaders, senior data leaders, are struggling to find mandate and support and, let's call it the proverbial seat at the table, if you will. But let's be honest. I mean, it's if you're going to give somebody a seat at the table where we're discussing hard hitting exco stuff, this is the direction of the business. This is where we need to go. This is what we need to invest in. And you're coming in and you're asking for technical stuff, and we need to adopt data fabric because everybody else is doing it. You're detracting them back from the away from their core focus as a business to make proper decisions to drive the company forward. So the way that we convey the messages is probably one of the reasons why we don't have access to those forums or platforms, or let's
Mm,
call it the tables or the boardrooms that we need to get into. So, I mean,
mm,
there's sort of two ways of getting the mandate that you need to. One is we've seen a lot of successes, getting somebody else that can almost become a change agent that can help you, that you can, like if you have this clear case for value and you can see that there's something that can come out of it, to spend. And this might not be even a senior executive, it might just be somebody that has the ear of the right people, that can communicate to them, that's able to take what you do and articulate it a bit better in terms of business context or maybe finance context. And I mean, those are usually the cases that move forward very quickly, right? So relying on those individuals, which means that you're almost building trusted partnership with somebody in business. On the other side is you can get mandate on your own, but this requires a intentional shift in mindset around, you're not a data person, you're not an insights producer, you're actually a value partner to the business.
mm,
And irrespective of where you find yourself in terms of a data function, your core role, reason for existence in the morning getting up, is you should be able to create value for your business.
mm,
And learning how to do that and learning how to articulate it well gives you the freedom to now step into conversations where otherwise you would have not been welcomed into.
yeah.
If I just think about, poor CFOs that we work with, they sit in the boardroom, and then they've got these finance approval councils, and then people come in and they have to pitch stuff. And every time the data person walks in, the CFO is just thinking to himself, like, really, are we doing this again for the next
Hmm.
for the next 30 minutes? I'm going to hear the same pitch, go through the same thing again, and then I have to be the bad guy that says no again. Whereas if you go there with good news, and even if your finance partners or finance, people, individuals that you're working with within your extended teams, and even if it's your line manager, right, that needs to secure budgets or those type of things, and you can clearly articulate, like, these are the things that we can do, and this is why we're doing it, and this is how we're tying it back to the business strategy. Instantly it becomes a conversation that people would want to have. Now that you come into like the CFO's room or the finance director, the finance business partner, and they see you, like, I'm glad to see you today. Like, I've got this problem where I need to, like, decrease cost, increase revenue. What do you have for me today? Like, what great idea do you have for us to create sustainable value for the business? And that helps you get that mandate. You're not going to get mandate just because you're a data person or because you're really good at doing data stuff. You'll get mandate if you can drive impact and real value. And you do that through collaboration, right? Data analytics on its own, unfortunately, doesn't create any value. So you need to rely on relationships, people, business, IT, everyone working together in order to get to that point of value. And if you can do that, I mean, its mandate wouldn't be too difficult to secure. It's difficult giving, I mean, it's, as a business person myself now, I would not give mandate to someone if they can't clearly articulate why they're doing what they're doing.
That's it. Yeah. John, just finally in 2 minutes, what about this publishing the value of what we're doing? I mean, we as data people, we can be so reserved about flaunting, our value. And maybe the first problem there is we're not actually generating real measurable value, and so there's nothing really to measure, right? Oopsie, right? It's like Simon Sinek said, right? We got to begin with the end in mind. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this initiative if I can't measure the value, because my purpose actually is to produce things where I can create measurable value only, and that's what's going to create this positive cycle of confidence in investing. Because if you can go to the CFO and routinely, when they're putting money into something that you're doing and you're able to generate new revenue and whatever, you're going to become their best friend. That battle will dissolve, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so there's like you said, there's a few angles to this. One is you're probably not measuring the value of the things that you're doing, right? Because you think that if somebody asked me to build a dashboard, maybe just the value of giving the dashboard to the person is enough, right? It's like when people think like sending an email is enough, my work's done.
Yes.
The work is done once the action has been completed, the decision has been made. So, when you're seeing in companies where people are churning out dashboards and models, but you're not seeing the decisions from it, and you don't measure the success of those decisions, you can't measure the impact. And that's what's so important to publish the value of the things that you are doing. Like, I've built this dashboard for this individual, for this, I built this for the C-suite or for the CEO. They're making these decisions that has led to this improvement in the company. Is so important, because when you get to the point where they question your being, why are you there? You can say, but listen, these are the things that I've produced. This is the value that we've created to the company. Number one is it will help you protect your existing investment in terms of the teams that you've built, the platforms that you've secured, and so forth. But it also sets you up for future investment, right? So if you need to go and ask for something additionally, and you can clearly show what the impact would be, people would get to that point where they actually would want to support you. The CFO will change from, being your biggest competitor in the ring, like your biggest enemy in that octagon, to being somebody that backs you and actually fights with you rather than fights against you.
That's
And I
amazing,
think
right?
for us, that has been probably the biggest impact is, focusing on publishing the value that we've generated, because then nobody can come back and question it down the line. You really don't want to be some of the data leaders that we've seen where it's so demotivating. Again, like 14 to 16 months into your program, the CFO comes knocking and says,
Yes.
show me the
Pull
ROI.
the
Like,
carpet out from under you.
what's happening? In the meantime, like, you're tracking the project, your timelines are great, you're delivering what you need to, technically you're delivering everything. And then all of a sudden, the CFO comes and he says, listen, where's my money? And you have no way of defending it, right? We always talk about being documented and defendable.
Yes.
That is what publishing value is all about.
Exactly. Oh, that's so great, John. So really, this is about driving confusion and creating clarity for the, or getting rid of confusion and creating clarity for the team, getting rid of, creating a noise in the discussion and striving for alignment around value, right? And then removing the idea that you're a cost center as a data analytics function, and really becoming a driver or an engine of value, which essentially moves you from being seen as a technical resource and really taking you to that space where you're now seen as a strategic leader. So as we close, if you take these tips into your meetings and engagements immediately, we guarantee you will see change. And finally, if you'd like to work with us to get the kind of results that we've seen, there's a link you can click on in the video description below. Bye for now.